Abuse of power. Wisdom of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. In the vast expanse of human experience, the pursuit and exercise of power has long been one of the most enduring and complex subjects. Power, much like a two-edged sword, possesses the potential to elevate, inspire, and uplift, but it also holds the capacity to corrupt, destroy, and consume. The ancient Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, delved deeply into the intricate dynamics of power, offering timeless wisdom that speaks just as powerfully to us today as it did thousands of years ago. To navigate the realms of power requires a delicate balance between introspection, ethical responsibility, and wisdom. These philosophers explored how power, when left unchecked, can lead not only to the downfall of societies, but also to the corruption of the individual soul. They understood that without self-knowledge and inner wisdom, power can become a seductive force that distorts reality and leads one towards self-destruction. Socrates. The unexamined power. Here is a famous quote from Socrates. Power, which is a mere shadow or image of true power, is often more ready to do mischief than true power. Socrates, often regarded as the father of Western philosophy, introduced the idea that the unexamined life is not worth living. This principle applies equally to the pursuit and exercise of power. Socrates believed that true wisdom is the recognition of one's own ignorance, and that unchecked power often blinds individuals to the limits of their knowledge and character. In the dialogue Gorgias, Socrates engages in a pointed debate with Gorgias, who asserts that power is the ultimate good. Socrates counters by suggesting that power, devoid of wisdom and self-discipline, is inherently dangerous. He offers the example of a tyrant who, though powerful, is enslaved by his own desires, fears, and insecurities. The tyrant may appear powerful to the outside world, but internally he is shackled to the whims of his ego and the fleeting nature of his control. Socrates compels us to examine our motivations when seeking power. He reminds us that without the continuous introspection and cultivation of wisdom, power becomes a force that corrupts from within. To wield power responsibly, one must first cultivate an understanding of oneself, the limits of one's knowledge, and the fragility of the human spirit. Plato, the corruption of the soul. Here is one of Plato's famous quotes: "The measure of a man is what he does with power." Plato, Socrates' devoted student, expanded upon his teacher's ideas, particularly in his masterpiece, The Republic. Plato envisioned an ideal society where power is wielded by philosopher-kings, rulers who are guided by wisdom, justice, and a commitment to the common good. In Plato's view, power should be entrusted to those who have ascended beyond the temptations of selfish desires and who have undergone rigorous intellectual and moral training. However, Plato was also deeply aware of the dangers of power. In his famous allegory of the cave, he describes the journey of the soul from ignorance to enlightenment. Yet, even the enlightened can be tempted by the shadows, those illusory representations of power and prestige that lurk in the darkness. Plato understood that the soul, when corrupted by the seduction of power, becomes trapped in its own illusions. Those who seek power for personal gain risk becoming ensnared in the very shadows they seek to escape. Plato's philosopher-king is an ideal that emphasizes the responsibility of leadership. Leaders must constantly reflect on their motivations and remain vigilant against the corrupting influence of power. They must wield power in service of the greater good, rather than for personal aggrandizement. This wisdom remains as relevant today as it was in ancient Greece, reminding us of the importance of ethical leadership in our contemporary world. Aristotle, the virtue of balance. Here is one of Aristotle's famous quotes. He who has never learned to obey cannot be a good commander. Aristotle, one of Plato's most distinguished students, brought a pragmatic perspective to the discourse on power. In his works, Politics and Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle argued that power should be distributed among various branches of government to prevent any individual or group from becoming too powerful. This balance, Aristotle believed, would create a more just and harmonious society where the risk of tyranny is minimized. Aristotle's vision of political power was rooted in his concept of the mean, which emphasizes moderation and balance. He argued that power should be exercised with virtue, compassion, and empathy. To Aristotle, leaders who lack virtue and allow ambition or hubris to drive their decisions are likely to fall into the traps of tyranny, injustice, and corruption. He advocated for a balanced approach to governance, one where power is distributed, checked, and guided by ethical principles. Aristotle also stressed the importance of accountability. He warned that power, when concentrated in the hands of a few, often leads to exploitation and oppression. By emphasizing the role of ethics and virtue in leadership, Aristotle offered a framework for exercising power responsibly. He saw power not as an end in itself, but as a means to promote the well-being of the collective and foster justice. The shadow of power, a universal truth. The shadow of power, as explored by Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, is a universal truth that continues to reverberate through the ages. Power, in its various forms, is seductive. It promises control, dominance, and prestige, but it often leads to a darker path, one that can corrupt the soul, harden the heart, and distance us from our core humanity. In the corridors of politics, the boardrooms of corporations, military, law enforcement, and even in our personal relationships, the abuse of power manifests in subtle and overt ways. Power can create an illusion of control, convincing us that we can bend others to our will, manipulate outcomes, and secure our place in the world. However, this illusion is fleeting, and it often blinds us to the true essence of power, which lies not in domination, but in self-mastery. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle understood this seductive pull of power. They warned of the dangers of unchecked ambition, hubris, and the temptation to use power for personal gain. Their wisdom challenges us to reflect on our own relationship with power, both in our personal lives and in the larger societal context. The redemption of power, wisdom as the antidote. Yet, despite the shadow of power, there is hope. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle all believed that wisdom holds the key to the ethical exercise of power. Wisdom reminds us of our limitations, our vulnerabilities, and our interconnectedness with others. It urges us to approach power with humility, recognizing that it is a sacred trust that must be handled with care and integrity. By cultivating self-awareness, empathy, and compassion, we can resist the seductive pull of power's shadow. We can begin to see power not as a tool for personal gain, but as an opportunity to serve the greater good. Wisdom encourages us to seek balance, to prioritize justice, and to remember the inherent dignity of all individuals. The path to redemption, as suggested by these ancient philosophers, begins with self-reflection. When we acknowledge the shadow of power within ourselves, we open the door to growth, transformation, and the possibility of wielding power responsibly. The choice: power or wisdom. Ultimately, the choice is ours. Will we succumb to the seductive allure of power, allowing it to consume us? Or will we choose a different path, a path guided by wisdom, compassion, and virtue? The ancient wisdom of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle offers a profound reminder that power is a sacred responsibility, one that requires constant self-examination, ethical reflection, and a deep commitment to justice. As we navigate the complexities of our modern world, may we remember the lessons of these great thinkers. May we strive to wield power with humility, wisdom, and compassion. And may we seek to create a future where power serves not the interests of the few, but the highest aspirations of all humanity. In doing so, we honor the timeless wisdom of the past and create a brighter, more just future for generations to come. Power, when wielded with care and integrity, becomes a force for good, a tool for uplifting humanity, fostering harmony, and promoting the common good. The choice is ours to make.